when we're on the road for an extended period of time, every day is busy with a similar routine. Driving, looking for the perfect place to stay at night. Setting up camp. Making fire and making dinner. But there's usually a sweet spot, a quiet time, right before dinner. When Melanie either writes about the day we just had, or plans the day ahead, as I go through all the footage we shot that day and back it up. We had initially planned to travel west to explore a national park. But the weather forecast was not promising at all. So, Melanie quickly made a few adjustments to our plans and told me to keep driving north instead. This change of itinerary gave us the opportunity to make a few unplanned stops along the way, like the Fox Lake burn site, where in 1998 a human-caused fire burned over 45,000 hectares of forest. We walked down the interpretive trail that led to a ridge, and where we learned about forest fires, their impact on the ecosystem, and how they can be beneficial to the natural cycle of life, allowing new plants and animals to repopulate areas after a fire, in a location non-populated by humans, of course. We continued our drive north and stumbled upon Braeburn Lodge. Braeburn is known for making some of the world's largest cinnamon buns and grilled cheese sandwiches. Since we didn't feel like ingesting 20,000 calories of pure sugar, we opted for the grilled cheese instead. Insanely fat, sure, but more appropriate for lunch.
It's huge!
A grilled cheese sandwich is a very simple dish, but it can be very tasty when done right. And right it was. Our next stop that day was the Montague Roadhouse Historic Site. It is the only remaining trace of the Pioneer era rest stop, back when people traveled up and down through stage cars and horses. These can be found every 40 kilometers or so along the Klondike Highway. We eventually made it out to Ferre, where once again, it was time to set up camp for the night. The next morning, we decided to go for a trail run before heading back out. The trails in Ferre all have animal names, and aside from overall scale reference on the map, there is no indication of length, elevation, or anything else. But it looked like we could do a loop of about 10 kilometers around the town, starting from the campsite. The trails were pretty smooth, but definitely had some big hills. And we did get a couple of nice views along the way. We then headed to Faro and Keno City via STEWART crossing, following the STEWART River. The STEWART River was heavily mined for gold, but it also turned out to be extremely rich in silver, making it one of the top silver mining areas in Canada, until it closed in the late 80s. Keno, or Keno City, has a population of 20. It was named after the gambling game Keno, very popular in mining camps at the turn of the 20th century. Rich silver and lead deposits were found on Keno Hill in 1919. Since then, the population of the community has fluctuated in response to the mining activity in the area. When in 1989, Keno Hill closed the mines overnight, the people in Keno who decided to stay chose a different economy: tourism. After setting up camp, we decided to drive up Keno Hill, a viewpoint at 1,800 meters. This was the best decision. The road there was incredibly scenic, revealing a different mountain range at every turn. And the sky was unreal, blue and cloudy on one side, dark and hazy with rain curtains on the other. We reached the signpost at the end of the road, a couple of kilometers away from the summit, and the views were remarkable. The signpost was erected for a geological convention, and various signs point to the cities around the world where scientists attending the event came from. The trail keeps going to a higher hill. Melanie decided to venture there, while I stayed at the jeep and flew my drone around for a bit. The trail was actually a wider path, and Melanie enjoyed running down it on the way back. We decided to stay one more night in Keno so we could explore Mount Hinton. Mount Hinton, 5 kilometers of Forest Service Road before we get to the top. We drove 10 kilometers on the dirt road. The jeep parked at the bottom. Now we're just hiking the rest. The views from Mount Hinton are some of the best in the Yukon, with rugged Rocky Mountain to the north and the northeast, and the rolling hills towards Mayo Lake to the south. After a few kilometers hiking up the logging road, we arrived at a split, with the trail going left, straight up the mountain. Once more, the end of the trail was quite steep, but for a very short amount of time, and the reward at the top justified every step we took to get there. As always, we stayed at the top of the mountain for half an hour or so, had a snack, looked around, took photos. And as the wind started to pick up, we decided to go back down the mountain. On our way back down, we noticed an excavator that was digging a trench in the side of the mountain. After asking a few questions, we were told that they were surveying the ground to potentially come back next year and mine gold. This was a bit heartbreaking to us, as digging didn't look so good to the mountain, and we couldn't help but wonder what this mountain would look like a year from now, if they happened to strike gold while surveying the land. Back in town, we took a tour of the local mining museum, which gave us a very good overview of the beginning of mining in the area. We got to learn about the living conditions in this small mining community in the first half of the 20th century. After getting a bit of education around the area and its industry, it was time for us to go check out a local pub. This local bar appears to be the only commercial building still active in Keno, since the hotel across the street burned down in December 2020. Overall, visiting Keno and its surroundings, even though it was not initially planned, ended up being one of the highlights of our trip. If you ever find yourself driving around the Yukon, we strongly recommend you check out Keno City. Thank you so much for watching this video, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.